My name is Adriana Vale. I'm 37 years old. And tonight, I'm standing in a private dining hall at a luxury resort called Silver Pine Shores, deep in the mountains, smiling politely while my mother-in-law gestures for me to bring her more dressing. Again. The way she does it, 2 fingers, a small flick of the wrist. It's not rude enough to call out. Not loud enough to offend anyone else. But it's clear. To her, I'm still staff. Not family. Not equal. Just useful. Adriana, dear, she calls without even looking at me, could you pass the dressing? And maybe check if there's more bread. Her name is Clarissa Hale. Elegant. Controlled. Always perfectly dressed in soft neutrals and quiet authority. And for over a decade, she has never once seen me clearly. I stand up. Of course I do. Because that's who I've been in this family. The one who stands. The one who serves. The one who fills in gaps no one notices exist. As I move toward the side table, I catch my reflection briefly in the glass. Simple navy dress. Low heels. Hair pulled back neatly. Practical. Always practical. That's what they call me. Behind me, laughter flows easily. My husband, Daniel Hale, sits at the center of the table with his brothers, discussing investments, expansion, things that sound important because they're spoken loudly. His sister, Lena, leans back in her chair, scrolling her phone, occasionally inserting comments about renovations and design trends. No one notices me walking back with the dressing. No one thanks me. Clarissa takes it without looking up. Finally, she says lightly. The salads were getting dry. Finally. I set it down and return to my seat. If you looked at this moment from the outside, you wouldn't see anything wrong. No shouting. No cruelty. No drama. Just a family dinner. But dismissal isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Constant. Carefully polite. It happens in the pauses. The way conversations shift away from you. The way your contributions are accepted, but never acknowledged. The way your presence becomes background. I've lived inside that background for 12 years. From the moment I married Daniel, I understood my role. Not because anyone explained it. Because they didn't have to. It was in the questions they asked and the ones they didn't. What do you do again? Clarissa asked once, years ago, during our first holiday dinner. I had just started explaining my work. I design infrastructure systems, urban planning, transit. She smiled politely. Oh, how interesting. And then she turned to someone else. Conversation over. No follow-up. No curiosity. Just dismissal wrapped in politeness. What I actually do? I lead large-scale infrastructure development projects. Transit systems. Water management. Urban sustainability. For over a decade, I've worked with government agencies and private sectors, shaping cities people will live in for generations. I manage millions in budgets. Hundreds of people rely on my decisions. But in this family, that translated to something with roads. They never asked more. So eventually, I stopped explaining. At gatherings like this, I learned to make myself small. To observe. To adapt. I became the one who arrived early, helped set the table, stayed late to clean, remembered birthdays, organized gifts, filled silence. Not because I had to. Because I thought, that's how you earn a place. But here's the truth no one tells you. You don't earn visibility in a system designed to overlook you. Last summer, something changed. We were here. Same resort. Same lake. Same traditions. And during dinner, Daniel's uncle made a joke. You must be saving a fortune, he said, laughing, still driving that old car. Everyone laughed. Even Daniel. I didn't. That night, I sat alone on the balcony. Watching the lake. Watching the reflections of lights ripple across the surface. And for the first time in years, I didn't ask what I had done wrong. I asked something else. What am I waiting for? That question didn't come with anger. It came with clarity. I wasn't trapped. I wasn't dependent. I wasn't powerless. I was choosing to stay invisible. And that realization changed everything. The next morning, before anyone else woke up, I made a call. Not to Daniel. Not to family. To someone who knew me before I learned how to disappear. Her name was Rhea Morgan. We had worked together years ago. Brilliant. Sharp. Now managing acquisitions for a private hospitality investment firm. She answered on the second ring. Well, she said, amused, this is unexpected. I want to buy a resort, I told her. Silence. Then a soft laugh. Of course you do, she said. You always did aim quietly, and high. That was the beginning. Not revenge. Not even a plan. Just a decision. Within weeks, we were reviewing properties. Numbers. Legal structures. Investment models. I told no one. Because for once, I didn't want to be discussed. I wanted to act. Months later, we found it. Silver Pine Shores. The same resort my husband's family had been visiting for years. The same place where I had been overlooked, dismissed, quietly erased. A legacy property. Beautiful. Underperforming. Owned by people ready to let go. Rhea saw opportunity. I saw something else. A place where I had once been invisible. A place that could, finally belong to me. You're not just buying a resort, Rhea said during our call. You're buying control of a narrative. She was right. I liquidated assets. Investments I had built quietly over years. Consulting earnings. Equity shares. Funds no one in my family even knew existed. Because they had never asked. We created a holding company. Aurelia Retreat Group. Clean. Anonymous. Strategic. The deal closed in 6 weeks. The first time I walked the property as its owner. I did it alone. Early morning. Fog rising off the lake. Silence stretching across the water. I stepped into the dining hall. Ran my hand across the table where Clarissa once corrected how I arranged cutlery. And I felt something I hadn't expected. Not anger. Not triumph. Just certainty. Ownership isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need permission. It simply is. From that moment forward, everything changed. Quietly. Ownership changed everything, but not in ways anyone could see. Not at first. That was the beauty of it. I didn't arrive with announcements or headlines. I didn't put my name on anything public. I let the structure shift underneath the surface, policy by policy, decision by decision. Quiet power. The kind that doesn't ask to be noticed. Rhea handled the visible side of the acquisition. Negotiations. Legal transitions. Financial restructuring. I stayed behind the curtain. Observing. Designing. Rebuilding. The first changes were internal. Staff wages increased. Schedules stabilized. Outdated systems were replaced. For the first time in years, employees weren't scrambling to hold things together, they were supported. The second changes were subtle, but far more strategic. Legacy privileges were removed. Not publicly. Not dramatically. Just gone. No more automatic upgrades. No more early check-ins because they always had them. No more discounts quietly applied at the end of a stay. Policies became universal. Equal. Consistent. Including for the Hale family. I reviewed their reservation personally when it came through. Same request as always. Lakeview Villas. Priority access. Familiar tone of expectation. I approved it. At full price. No privileges. No notes. Because sometimes denial creates resistance. But quiet equality, that creates confusion. By the time the annual family retreat approached, everything was in place. We arrived on a Thursday afternoon. The same way we always had. Luggage. Greetings. Air kisses. No one noticed that I didn't stop at the front desk. No one questioned why the general manager nodded to me differently. Why staff greeted me with a kind of quiet respect. To them, I was still Adriana. Predictable. Background. At breakfast the next morning, the complaint started. The service feels different this year, Lena said, stirring her coffee. The check-in was slow, added one of the cousins. Clarissa sighed lightly. It's lost its charm. It used to feel personal. I sat at the end of the table, sipping tea, listening. It feels corporate now, Daniel said, casually. No warmth. Just rules. Rules. I almost smiled. They were describing me. But they didn't know it. And that was the point. There is a particular kind of power in being underestimated. In watching people critique you, without realizing you're the thing they're critiquing. That evening was the welcome dinner. A tradition. Clarissa had orchestrated everything, as always. Theme. Seating. Menu. She moved through the room like she owned it. Like this place belonged to her. I wore a simple dress. The same kind I always wore. Nothing that demanded attention. Because I didn't need attention. I had something better. Control. Halfway through dinner, the conversation shifted to renovations. Who renovates a pool mid-season? One cousin scoffed. Amateurs. They clearly don't understand tradition, another added. Clarissa raised her glass. I just hope whoever bought this place understands that families like ours built its reputation. That sentence lingered in the air. Heavy. Confident. Completely certain. I placed my fork down slowly. They had no idea. After dessert, I stood. I'm going to step outside for a moment, I told Daniel. He nodded absently. Didn't look up. Of course he didn't. I walked out onto the terrace. The lake stretched before me, calm, dark, endless. I took out my phone. Dialed one number. Ethan, I said when he answered. Our general manager. It's time. A pause. Then. Understood. I ended the call. Took one breath. And walked back inside. The room had shifted by the time I returned. Not visibly. But subtly. Like something was about to happen. Ethan stood near the front of the dining hall. Calm. Professional. He tapped a spoon lightly against a glass. The sound cut through the room. Conversations stopped. Heads turned. Good evening, he began. Thank you all for joining us. Clarissa smiled faintly. Expecting praise. Recognition. This year marks a new chapter for Silver Pine Shores, Ethan continued. A pause. As part of this transition, we are proud to introduce the new majority owner of the resort. I stepped forward. Please welcome. Adriana Vale. Silence. Not confusion. Not murmuring. Silence. Complete. Clarissa froze mid-expression. Her smile didn't drop, it fractured. Lena blinked rapidly, trying to process. The cousins stared. Daniel. He looked like the ground had shifted beneath him. I walked forward slowly. Each step deliberate. Measured. Ethan handed me the microphone. I turned to face the room. I want to thank you all, I said calmly, for your years of support. No one spoke. No one moved. This place has always been about tradition, I continued. Family. Continuity. A pause. And now, it's also about change. I let the silence stretch. Let them sit in it. You are all still welcome here, I said. Then added, gently. Like everyone else. That was the moment it landed. No more hierarchy. No more special treatment. No more invisible lines placing them above others. Effective immediately, I continued, all guest policies apply equally. No emotion. No anger. Just fact. I looked at Daniel last. He couldn't meet my eyes. Any concerns, I finished, can be directed to management. I handed the microphone back. Turned. Walked out. No applause. No confrontation. Just silence. The next morning, I didn't attend breakfast. I let them sit with it. Let them replay the moment. Reframe it. Struggle to understand how the narrative had shifted without their permission. By noon, the messages began. Lena. Can we talk? A cousin. I had no idea. That's impressive. Clarissa called. Twice. I didn't answer. Daniel came to my room. Why didn't you tell me? he asked. I looked at him. Why didn't you ever ask? He had no answer. Because the truth was simple. He never saw me. Not really. The rest unfolded quickly. Requests. Apologies. Subtle attempts to regain footing. But something fundamental had changed. They were no longer above me. And more importantly, I was no longer beneath them. Clarissa eventually came in person. Composed. Controlled. We need to discuss how this looks, she said. I let her speak. About image. Reputation. Family. Then I placed a file in front of her. Documentation. Staff complaints. Records of behavior. Things she had assumed were invisible. I've already handled it privately, I said. Her composure cracked. This isn't a threat, I added calmly. It's a record. For the first time. She had nothing to say. Daniel moved out a month later. Quietly. No argument. No scene. Just absence. He left a note. I didn't see you. I kept it. Not out of sentiment. But as confirmation. Because sometimes the most powerful truth is the simplest one. He didn't see me. Until it was too late. Months passed. The resort thrived. New programs. Fair policies. Better systems. It became something stronger. More honest. And for the first time. So did I. One morning, I sat by the lake. Coffee in hand. Silence around me. Not the old silence. The one filled with expectation. A different kind. Peace. I wasn't proving anything anymore. I wasn't waiting to be acknowledged. I wasn't asking for space. I had taken it. And that's the thing about power. Real power doesn't ask to be seen. It changes the room, whether anyone is ready or not.